questions I can't answer. I don't
This is Peggy Kiefer reporting from the Monkey Island Fire Station. Commissioner Doug Smith has invited residents of Delaware County to come to the fire station. He said to give everybody some background on the lawsuit, how the events occurred, the time frame they occurred, and as much information as he could give without violating orders that he cannot talk about, and as far as depositions and what the remedies are, what the commissioners are doing to try to help the county, and basically, he said, how we are going to pay for this.
So let me start off. These events happened in the vast majority between 2006 and 2008. And it happened, as you've read, in the jail. And outside the jail, too, in vehicles that were transporting female inmates to and from Grove. There were two main perpetrators in this. One of them was a volunteer, if you can believe it, that volunteered to transport, male volunteer, to transport women to and from Grove. That person died, and that was one of the main ones. He died shortly after this lawsuit was filed. So he's gone. Dead. The other main perpetrator was the jail administrator. He is he's still living. He has been terminated, and he is currently under investigation by OSBI. So that's the deal. Now these events took place, and they were very sordid, I got to tell you. And we knew this lawsuit was out there. And kind of like the rest of you, I looked at this thing, I looked at it, and all the depositions were coming my way, and I could not believe any of this could actually be true. It was just the most unbelievable sort of thing you ever seen. As we went through, and they were taking more depositions of the victims, I was reading them, watching the videos, and believe me, I was just absolutely petrified. But I was trying to keep an open mind that maybe that when we got to the depositions of our sheriff, our jailers, our deputies, that we would have a redeeming factor in there before this all came. Unfortunately, it got worse on those depositions. The depositions on our side actually contributed to the plaintiff's case. So at that point, we're basically working with nothing, in my opinion, and in the opinion of a legal team that has done this for years. Now, the legal team was Collins, Zorn, and Wagner. They were paid by our insurance company. Now, there's been a lot of talk out there of how these folks work for the insurance company. They didn't work for the insurance company. They represented us, but so that we could have their bill paid, our insurance company paid them. So it eroded some of our coverage. Is that understandable? So they completely were our defense team. They had nothing to do with the insurance company, defending everything. They were just paid by the insurance company. They did a very good job, to tell you the truth. And as we went on, they were consulting with us, and they were telling us this is getting worse and worse and worse and worse. The very first request, I don't know if it's request, demand from the plaintiff's lawyer was $31 million for this. And then it continued to get worse. As prescribed by law, the judge ordered a settlement hearing, which always happens for this case, and it was November 1st. We went to the Tulsa. This was a civil rights violation, by the way, federal civil rights violation, but it was filed under state statute. So we went to Tulsa to the settlement hearing. The three commissioners, I had three of the lawyers for Collins, Zorn, and Wagner, and I asked Eddie Wyatt to come along for just some personal consultation. I want to make it clear, Eddie Wyatt was not a lawyer that defended this case at all. But I asked him to come along because I just felt like I needed him there because he did have some information that might be useful. And so we went. And it was, for 2 days, it was excruciating. We're fighting this thing, and I can't give you all the details because, again, negotiations are strictly privileged. But I can tell you that it started out much, much, much higher than where we ended up as far as a settlement. The easy way out would have been to go to trial on this, because it would have been easy. I could have just said, or we could have just said, go to trial. That's it. But the fact is, I knew, and I'm convinced and convicted, that if we'd have gone to trial, the jury settlement would have been much, much worse. And so I felt like we needed to settle this case. The federal judge was going back and forth between the two parties as the mediator. And we had videos of depositions there we were watching, all of these things, and it was not good for us. In fact, it was horrible for us. So, in the end, with the help of the mediator, Judge Claire Egan, federal judge, we settled for $13.5 million. And I know it is tragic, it hurt, and I'm going to tell you, it was the worst thing I've ever been through. So, once that's done, of course, now we have to come out here and explain to you what happened. And that's why I'm here. So, I will go on. I'm going to take questions, by the way. After the settlement, let me go one more thing. The settlement, the law states on a settlement, whether it's a jury settlement or a jury judgment or a settlement, the law states that settlement has to be based on ad valorem taxes. Based now, it doesn't have to pay it that way. Based on ad valorem tax or backed up by ad valorem tax, has to be paid within 3 years. That's where all this 18% came from. Because if that's the way it worked, worst case scenario, then that's exactly what it would be. One other issue too that you need to know. We have an insurance pool. Our insurance is through ACO Insurance Pool, self-insured pool, insurance pool that most counties, majority of them, use. That insurance has $1 million limit per occurrence. Our insurance company, about 3 weeks before we went to settlement, came and said that their position is this was one occurrence. But we had 15 plaintiffs, but one occurrence. Of course, we immediately went out and hired a professional outside law firm, professional in these type of insurance claims, and hired them to contest this. At this point, it's not under litigation yet. They're working, but it will be under litigation. And the way that works, and I've read all the information on it, the arguments are this. This lawsuit was filed under the premise called deliberate indifference by the sheriff. In other words, all these things were happening in the sheriff's department. The sheriff did nothing about it. That's how the lawsuit was filed. So the insurance company claims that since it was just for deliberate indifference, it's one occurrence. Our position is, no, these are 15 different plaintiffs, so they're 15 different occurrences. There is case law on both sides of that issue, but we're going to fight it. Now, the way the judgment was set up, even if we were to prevail on this, because each one of the plaintiffs got a different amount, even if we were to prevail, it would reduce us only where we would still have a $6 million liability out there. If we don't prevail, it's $13.5 million. So I need you to understand that. So that's where we are. The $13.5 million again is based on property taxes. That does not mean that if you don't have $13.5 million in a sinking fund, you can't pay it up front. It's just what they base it on because they have to guarantee it somehow or another, and that's the law. Since this has come down, of course, it's not fair to property owners. Take the full brunt of this. I'm one of you. I know. You guys know where I live. Most of you guys know where you know me. It's not fair to do that. So there was a similar case in Custer County 3 years ago where a $10.5 million settlement was reached on a very similar circumstance. Custer County put together a sales tax and bond issue and spread it out to finance the judgment, so it didn't come off of property taxes. I think that's more of a fair way because obviously the residents here, there's just as many residents that aren't property owners that are property owners here. I've already been in contact with the Glenn Floyd Law Firm in Norman, and, well, actually, let me read it because the titles are kind of interesting, the email. But with the Floyd Law Firm, a public finance firm, and D.A. Davidson and Company, an underwriting firm, and they handled the Custer County case and put that together, and they're coming here to a commission meeting on November 29th to give us a presentation of how we might finance this and kind of spread this burden out. I've already given their numbers. I did that early on, gave them the numbers on where sales are and that type of thing in the county. They are working up the numbers right now. That's an option, but of course that has to go to a vote of the people. And we all know how tough that's been. But I guarantee you I'm going to be out there promoting it just as hard as I possibly can.